Welcome to a special bonus episode of Shujin Academy VGM Club. I'm Professor Tom, your faculty sponsor. Before I start the show, you should all be aware that this episode discusses some topics that may be inappropriate for certain listeners. In fact, maybe you should just stop listening now. I'm pretty sure your time would be better spent elsewhere. Unless you're my friends Steve and Dave, who might actually appreciate what I'm doing here. Hi Steve. Hi Dave. In the 16-bit era of gaming, the cartridges that had been used for video games started to give way to CDs with the advent of the Sega CD and TurboGrafx CD add-ons for the Genesis and TurboGrafx 16. Companies began to embrace the extra storage space by upgrading their soundtracks to include some CD-quality tunes for special occasions within a game. These songs were typically reserved for an opening attract sequence, or maybe a vitally important cutscene, or even for the game's grand finale. Often those songs included vocals, which was a really exciting new innovation for those of us who'd only ever heard chiptunes coming out of our consoles. It felt like video games were growing up. Speaking of the Sega CD, today's opening track was Fighting Through the Darkness, the opening theme for the North American release of Lunar, the Silver Star for the Sega CD. It was composed by Noriyuki Iwadare, with English vocals from Shia Almeida. It's a translation of the song Lunar for the original Japanese release of the game. The original lyrics were from Isao Mizuguchi. Credits for the translation are a bit fuzzy, although it was released here by Working Designs, and company vice president Victor Ireland is credited as lead writer. Now, not everyone had a TurboGrafx CD or a Sega CD at home because the systems were often quite expensive, and so most of us missed out on what CD storage could bring to gaming until the Sony PlayStation and Sega Saturn were released. For today's episode, I'm going to go through some of the great vocal tracks of the early generations of CD gaming and take a look at how game music took advantage of the extra space and audio quality afforded by the CD medium to add special songs with vocals. I mentioned a little earlier that vocal tracks were typically saved for big important occasions like a game's ending sequence. That was especially notable in JRPGs, where games like Chrono Trigger used vocal tracks to help add emotion to their ending sequences. But it wasn't just pure JRPGs that used vocal tracks. Other games used them as well, like Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And that's not a JRPG, it's a Metroidvania. In fact, it's the game that put the Vania in Metroidvania. Really, Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night are to Metroidvanias what Socrates and Plato are to Western philosophy. There were important games in the genre before these two, but they're the two towering figures that put it all together and codified the way things work for everyone afterwards. This episode is coming out on April 1st, 2023, which is the 26.03287th anniversary of Symphony of the Night's initial release in Japan, and what better way to celebrate that important anniversary on an episode all about vocal tracks than by playing the game's best-known vocal track. All of Symphony of the Night soundtrack is terrific, and the vocal track used for the game's ending really ties everything together and says a lot about the journey of Alucard, the game's protagonist, also the son of Dracula, also the coolest character in Castlevania 3, also the best-looking character on the Castlevania animated series. Symphony of the Night's ending theme is called I Am the Wind, and it was written and performed by Rika, Muranaka, Tony Haynes, Jeff Lorber, Carl Anderson, and vocalist Cynthia Harrell. Sadly, it's been replaced in modern re-releases of this game due to rights issues. Also, the re-releases have redone the original game's very memorable dubbing. I, for one, think that is a shame. Modern generations should get this masterpiece in its original incarnation, without cuts. Those damn millennials, they've ruined everything with their avocado toast and their student debt and all those Applebee's they've killed. Applebee's used to be the cornerstone of this country. I took my prom date to Applebee's, and now it's dead, gone forever. What will we do? How will we find our way as a nation? What is wrong with this country? Where was I? Applebee's, millennials, modernity. That's right, I was talking about I Am the Wind. Okay, well, this is a game music podcast, so let's play a game music. Check out I Am the Wind from Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the PlayStation.
Just like the sun, when my day's done. Sometimes I don't like the person I've become. Is the enemy within or 1,000 men? Should I walk the path my words so bad? Someone testing me every day I live. Well, the best in me is all I have to give. I can't pretend. I am the wind. And I don't know if I will pass this way again. See the sun or feel the wind. I am the wind. I am the sun. And one day we'll all be one. I am the wind. I am the sun.
Great vocal tracks weren't just limited to the PlayStation. The Sega Saturn had its fair share of classic tunes, particularly since it had a ton of JRPGs that weren't available on Sony's system. And vocal tracks could be found in all kinds of genres for Sega's system. Firefighting simulation Burning Rangers, 3D brawler Die Hard Arcade, and fighting game mashup Fighters Megamix all had memorable vocal tracks, either used during gameplay, during cutscenes, or to underline the emotional catharsis of their endings. And it wasn't just Sega's first-party games either. The Saturn version of Madden NFL 98 had an exclusive original song called Smash Mouth All-Star that was used for halftime shows. Note that this song bears no relation to the band Smash Mouth or their song All-Star. Really though, if you think about vocal tracks for the Saturn, there's only one game that comes to mind. This game produced multiple songs that stand above all others in the pantheon of Sega Saturn vocal tracks, and even today it has few rivals for vocal greatness. I'm talking, of course, about Sonic R, the Sonic racing title that's a little bit like Super Mario Kart, but way better, because its title has an R, while there aren't any R's in Super Mario Kart. This game was composed by Richard Jacques, who was also featured on the show in my Dreamcast episode for his work on Metropolis Street Racer, and just like Metropolis Street Racer, Richard Jacques teamed up with TJ Davis for vocals on multiple tracks. There's a lot of great material on this soundtrack, so I'm going to play a block of songs. It'll start with Supersonic Racing, the game's opening theme, and I'll follow it up with Can You Feel the Sunshine, and then I'll close out the block with Living in the City. All of these are composed by Richard Jacques, with vocals by TJ Davis.
Just like the sun, when my day's done. Sometimes I don't like the person I've become. Is the enemy within or 1,000 men? Should I walk the path my words so glad Is someone testing me every day I live? Well, the best in me is all I have to give. I can't pretend. I am the wind. And I don't know if I will pass this way again. All things the sun, and one day we'll all be one. I am the wind, I am the sun. One day we'll all be one. I am the wind, I am the sun. One day we'll all be one. I am the sun. One day we'll all be one. I am the wind, I am the sun. Always we will all be one. Drifting high in the sky, separated. All through thick and thin. Always we will all, 'cause I will find life and death to save my friend. I am the wind, I am the sun.
It's not an episode of Shujin Academy VGM Club unless I'm playing something from Shoji Meguro or Nobuo Uematsu, and Uematsu gets the call today. I mentioned earlier that JRPGs in the 32-bit era used vocal tracks to drive home the emotion of big important moments like endings, and the Final Fantasy franchise was absolutely not immune. While Final Fantasy VII's melancholy ending didn't use a vocal track, Final Fantasy VIII and IX certainly both did. Both of those games also involve love stories between party members, and the romantic melodies of these ending themes really did get enhanced emotions due to the use of vocals. So, to start the next block, I'm going to play Eyes on Me, the ending theme for Final Fantasy VIII. It was composed by Nobuo Uematsu and arranged by Shiro Hamaguchi, with English lyrics from Kako Someya and vocals provided by Fei Wong. And for the ultimate song in the block, we'll hear the English version of Melodies of Life, the main theme for Final Fantasy IX. It was also composed by Nobuo Uematsu and arranged by Shiro Hamaguchi, with vocals from Emiko Shiratori on both the Japanese and English versions. Lyrics were written by Hiroyuki Ito and then translated into English by Kako Someya and Alexander O. Smith.
Just like the wind, I've always been drifting high up in the sky that never ends. Through thick and thin, I always win, 'cause I will fight both life and death to save a friend. I face my destiny every day I live, and the best of me is all I have to give. Just like the sun, when my day's done. Sometimes I don't like the person I've become. Is the enemy within or 1,000 men? Should I walk the path my words so bad I have? Is someone testing me every day I live? Well, the best in me is all I have to give. I can't pretend. I am the wind, and I don't know if I will pass this way again. All things must stand. Goodbye, my friend. Think of me when you see the sun or feel the wind. I am the wind, I
A lot of 32-bit era developers were really interested in putting vocal tracks in games, so after a few years you started to see them pop up in interesting places where you wouldn't really expect to hear a song with vocals. We've really covered JRPG use of vocal tracks, but they would also show up in big-budget action games, in colorful 3D platformers trying and failing to outdo Super Mario 64, and even in some really unexpected places, often games that didn't leave Japan for one reason or another. For example, multiple dating simulators got vocal tracks, often sung by pop idol characters that you could date. A few business management simulation games also got vocal tracks intended to serve as the company song of your fictional enterprise. One of my favorites comes from a Japan-exclusive Saturn bass fishing game called Big Mouth Catch, The Greatest Champion. It had a country-flavored opening theme song called Kokoro ni Suki Sasaru Rua, which translates into English as Striking Lure into the Heart. But I think the best unexpected vocal track from a Japan-only title is from Birdie Lord Golf Augusta Masters Championship 1998, a game that borrowed the names of Augusta National Golf Club and the Masters Golf Tournament, but that did not actually replicate its namesake course. The song is called 9-Iron Drive into Infinity Forever. It was composed by Jubei Kibagami and Kaneda Tetsuo, and the vocals are from Amano Jacques. And now, because both these songs are awesome, I'm going to play both Striking Lure into the Heart and 9-Iron Drive into Infinity Forever. Gird your loins.
Just like the sun, when my day's done. Sometimes I don't like the person I've become. Is the enemy within or 1,000 men? Should I walk the path my words so bad? Is someone testing me every day I live? Well, the best in me is all I have to give. I can't pretend. I am the wind. And I don't know if I will pass this way again. Sun or feel the wind. I am the wind. I am the sun. And one day we'll all be one. I am the wind. I am the sun.
Alright, in the unlikely event that you're still listening, and if you hadn't already guessed, this has been another April Fool's Day episode from me. I enjoyed doing last year's episode so much, I decided to do another one, and I thought it would be a great gag to play the same song multiple times while pretending to do an episode. Some of the stuff I mention on this show is real, and some of it is a complete fabrication. I'll let you decide which is which, and then you can do the appropriate research to find the truth. If you gave up listening well before this part, I don't actually blame you, and if you've listened to this whole thing, I offer you a heartfelt apology. Come back soon for a real episode of Shujin Academy VGM Club. And that's the show. If you want to reach me, or yell at me about this episode, you can find me on Mastodon at Shujin Academy VGM Club at mastodon.coffee, or on Discord as Professor Tom 7512. I'm also on both Tumblr and Instagram as Shujin Academy VGM Club. Email me at shujinacademyvgmclub@gmail.com, and you can find my channel on YouTube by searching for Shujin Academy VGM Club, or use the link in the show notes. Please leave me a 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you find this episode, but maybe don't use this one as basis for that rating. Look for new episodes on Thursdays whenever I get them done, which is typically once or twice a month. As a note of self-promotion, I'll be appearing on an upcoming episode of fellow VGM podcast VG Emporium with my podcast bro Rage Cage, which should be coming out soon in the next few weeks. Look for that one. I've got one more song to play us out, and in case you hadn't guessed, it's I Am the Wind. I'm gonna sing along for this one, and I would encourage you to do so as well. You probably know the words by now. Thank you for listening, and also suffering through all of this. I'm Professor Tom, and I'll see you next time on Shujin Academy VGM Club. Just like the wind,
I've always been
always.
drifting high up in the sky that never ends.
So high,
Through thick and thin,
I always win. 'Cause I will fight both night and day to save a friend. I face my destiny every day I live. Every day.
and the best in me is all I have to give.
The best is all I
Just
have.
like the sun,
Just like the sun.
when my day's done. Sometimes I don't like the person I've become.
He's pretty lousy.
Is the enemy within our thousand men?
Who is the enemy?
Should I walk the path my world so bad
I have no idea what those lyrics are.
Is someone testing me every day I live?
Are they testing me?
Well, the best in me
Is all I have to give.
I can't pretend.
I can't pretend.
I am the wind.
I am the wind.
And I don't know if I will pass this way again.
I might be back. I might not.
All things must end.
Definitely all things must end.
Goodbye, my friend.
Goodbye, friends. This episode's over.
Think of me when you see the sun or feel the wind.
Every time, the son of the wind. Think of me.
I am the wind.
I am the sun. And one day we'll all be one.
I am the wind.
I am the wind.
I am the sun.
I'm also the sun.
And
One day,
we'll all be one.
we're all just gonna be a big, mushy blob of flesh. One of us. But also all of us. But also one of us. Gonna sing along with this sax solo now. I am the sun, and one day we'll all be one. I am the wind, I am the sun. One day we'll all be one. Big squishy puddle. I am the sun. One day we'll all be one. I'm blowing like the wind. I'm also the sun.
One day we'll all be one.
Maybe that day is Tuesday. Always been. So incredibly high in the sky. Both thick and thin. Sometimes when it gets boring. I can't believe anyone listened to this whole thing. Yeah.